Your hidden addiction may not be the obstacle you think it is. It could be the doorway. Jung spent decades observing a pattern that conventional psychology still struggles to grasp. Those destined for extraordinary purposes rarely arrive through clean, illuminated paths. They arrive through shadow, through compulsion, through what appears to every watching eye to be total destruction. And there is a reason for this that will change everything you believe about yourself. You were not chosen despite your addiction. You were chosen because of it. Consider this carefully. The alcoholic seeking transcendence through drink is not merely escaping pain. There is a hunger present, a hunger for spiritual experience, for something that elevates beyond the ordinary realm of existence. The workaholic who cannot stop, who cannot rest even when exhaustion screams for mercy, is not demonstrating mere insecurity or fear of failure. What you are witnessing is massive creative energy that has not yet found its true expression, its authentic channel. The relationship addict who leaps from romance to romance, who cannot seem to stand alone, is not showing an inability to love. This pattern reveals a capacity too deep, too profound for connection, seeking sacred form in a profane world that has forgotten how to hold such depth. Every addiction carries, within its distorted core, the exact seed of the calling for which you were designed. The compulsion is the language your soul uses when all other languages have failed. And the intensity of your suffering does not measure your weakness. It measures the magnitude of the potential trying to be born through you. Before we continue exploring this profound territory together, if you feel this message resonating with something deep within you, consider subscribing to this channel and activating notifications. Every week, we explore the hidden teachings of Jung, the sacred psychology of transformation, and the pathways from shadow to light. You will find additional resources, practices, and a community of others on this journey in the pinned comment below and in the description. You are not alone in this. Now back to what your addiction is truly trying to tell you. Jung called it the shadow, those aspects rejected, denied, exiled from who you truly are. But here is the secret that few understand, the key that unlocks everything. Your shadow is not your enemy. It is your teacher in disguise. The addiction is the form your shadow takes when it screams to be recognized, integrated, transformed into power. Have you noticed that your addiction did not emerge from nowhere, from random chance or simple bad luck? Observe the timing with careful attention. It appeared or exploded during existential transitions, during threshold moments when you left school and faced the vast unknown of adult responsibility, when a significant relationship ended and forced you to confront yourself without the mirror of another, when you reached age milestones that demanded questions about meaning and purpose. These are liminal moments, portals where an old identity dies and a new one could be born. The addiction marks these portals like flaming beacons, impossible to ignore, demanding that you pay attention to what is trying to transform within you. And there is something else, something that distinguishes you from those who remain trapped indefinitely. While some people maintain their compulsions forever, living lives of functional dependence that never quite breaks them open, you cannot. The addiction stops working for you. The escape closes, the relief disappears, the substance or behavior that once provided temporary peace now provides only deeper anguish. Jung called this moment the night sea journey, the forced descent into depths where you either transform or drown. This breaking point is not collapse, though it feels like annihilation. It is convocation. It is the universe speaking directly to your soul, saying you cannot live small anymore. Something greater is demanding birth, and your addiction, your suffering that has become impossible to ignore, is the brutal messenger of that demand. The medieval alchemists fascinated Jung not because they attempted to transform base metals into gold through chemical processes, but because their formulas encoded psychological transformation. They described 3 stages that you, right now, are living through whether you recognize it or not. First comes nigredo, the blackening, the conscious imprisonment within addiction. You are here, trapped in the darkness, feeling the walls close in. But this prison is not punishment sent by a cruel universe. It is an incubator. The energy feeding your compulsion is being concentrated, pressurized, prepared for the explosion that will eventually come. Then arrives albedo, the whitening, when clarity breaks through like dawn after endless night. You begin to see the legitimate needs hidden behind the compulsion. You were not running from life, you were seeking more abundant life, you simply did not know how to access it through authentic channels. And finally comes rubedo, the reddening, when new vitality explodes through you and directs itself toward the world through creation, service, expression that is uniquely yours. Lead into gold, addiction into calling, prisoner into profit. But how do you know if your addiction is truly this? A calling in disguise, and not just a problem requiring conventional treatment and willpower. The signs are specific, recognizable if you look with honest eyes. The nature of your addiction points directly toward the calling itself. Are you addicted to social media, consuming validation in digital doses, scrolling endlessly through curated lives while your own feels increasingly hollow? Your soul is crying out for authentic connection and meaningful recognition. You are destined to gather people, create genuine community, lead movements that matter. The compulsion reveals the calling hidden within it. Are you a workaholic, unable to rest, pushing yourself beyond all reasonable limits? Titanic creative energy is seeking form. You carry something new that needs to be born into the world, an idea, an enterprise, art, a system of understanding. Your body knows this before your mind can articulate it. Are you addicted to sex, to pornography, to the endless pursuit of physical pleasure that leaves you feeling emptier each time? Extraordinary life force demands sacred channeling. You possess transformative power in healing, in artistic expression, in presence itself, power that currently leaks through cracks because it has no container strong enough to hold it. Synchronicities surround your struggle like guides you cannot quite see, but can sense watching. Impossible coincidences pile up. You think about making a change, and a stranger mentions exactly the resource you need. A book falls from a shelf, opening to the precise page that addresses your question. A casual conversation reveals the missing piece you have been seeking. Jung understood this deeply. When the psyche is mobilizing profound transformation, the unconscious orchestrates your journey through external events. Your addiction is not random chaos. You are being guided by forces larger than your conscious awareness, forces that know exactly what you need to complete this alchemy. Your dreams carry maps if you learn to read them. Do you dream of prisons and lost keys, of searching through unknown landscapes, of encounters with mysterious figures who speak in riddles? Do symbols of death and rebirth populate your sleep? Snakes shedding skin, butterflies emerging from cocoons, phoenixes burning in flames only to rise renewed. Jung saw dreams not as mere reflections of the past or random neurological noise, but as instructions from the future, messages from the part of you that already knows who you are becoming. Your unconscious is trying to show you the way forward, speaking in the ancient language of symbol, because the rational mind would reject what it does not yet believe possible. And here is the most revealing sign of all. Conventional treatments do not resolve the emptiness at your core. You may achieve temporary behavioral control, strings of clean days, weeks of sobriety, periods where willpower holds the compulsion at bay. But the hole inside you remains aching, vast, demanding something you cannot name. This is because what you are experiencing is not merely chemical dependency or bad habit formation, it is soul hunger. And soul hunger cannot be satisfied with willpower or behavioral modification or even the best therapeutic interventions. It demands real food, genuine nourishment in the form of purpose, meaning, authentic expression of what you truly are beneath all the layers of conditioning and fear. So what do you do with this understanding? How do you actually transmute lead into gold, prison into power, addiction into calling? The path is specific, drawn from Jung's own methods and the testimony of countless individuals who have walked this transformative fire. First, you must dialogue with your shadow directly. Sit down in a quiet space where you will not be disturbed. Write a letter to your addiction as if it were a living entity with its own intelligence and purpose, because in a very real psychological sense, it is. Dear addiction, what are you trying to tell me? What are you protecting me from? What are you afraid will happen if you release your grip? Then listen with every fiber of your being for the answers that emerge through sudden thoughts, bodily sensations, images that appear in your mind's eye. This is not fantasy or mere imagination. It is communication with exiled aspects of your psyche that are finally being given permission to speak, to be heard, to offer their wisdom. Second, you must create symbolic action that the unconscious can recognize and respond to. The deeper layers of the psyche respond to ritual and symbol, not merely to rational decisions and conscious intentions. Burn a letter describing the prison of addiction, feeling the heat of transformation as paper turns to ash. Create art that expresses your suffering, giving form to what has been formless agony. Perform a personal ceremony, marking your intention to transform, speaking your commitment aloud, even if no one else is present to witness. These actions anchor internal change in external reality, sending a clear message to your psyche that declares, "We are doing this truly, not just thinking about it, but acting upon it." Third, you must practice what Jung called active imagination, a specific technique for engaging the unconscious directly. Enter a meditative state, relaxed but alert. Invite images related to your addiction to appear in your mind's eye without forcing or controlling them. When they emerge, perhaps you see a prison cell, or a shadowy figure, or a desolate landscape that makes your heart ache. You must interact with them consciously. Ask the image what it wants, what it needs, why it has appeared. Negotiate with it. Listen to what it tells you, even if the message seems strange or uncomfortable. This dialogue builds bridges between conscious intention and unconscious energy, creating channels through which the force driving your addiction can be redirected toward its true purpose. And finally, you must execute what Jung called the return, bringing the transformed energy back into the world through concrete action that others can see and touch. This does not mean achieving perfection or becoming some idealized version of yourself free from all struggle. It means authentic expression of who you actually are, wounds and gifts, both visible. The energy that once fed your addiction now feeds creation, service, leadership, artistic work, healing presence. You discover, perhaps to your amazement, that your addiction becomes your credential rather than your shame. Evidence that you have traveled to the dark places and returned carrying treasures that can only be found in those depths. Jung observed that those who complete this journey develop something increasingly rare in our superficial world: embodied compassion. You know the depths intimately. So when others suffer, when they struggle with their own shadows and compulsions, you do not judge them from a position of superiority. You recognize them. You see yourself in their struggle. Many chosen ones discover that their ultimate purpose involves guiding others through the same territory they themselves traveled, not as perfect examples who have transcended all difficulty, but as authentic companions who understand from the inside what that particular hell feels like. And here is the final truth that Jung saw with perfect clarity, the truth that makes sense of all the suffering. Every chosen one who transforms addiction into purpose adds something essential to the collective human experience. Your personal struggle, once transmuted through the alchemical fire, becomes a universal gift. You become living proof that darkness turns to light, that compulsion transforms into conscious choice, that what seemed like curse was, all along, the mark of one designated for extraordinary journey. You are not broken beyond repair. You are being forged in fires that would destroy those not meant for this particular calling. Every moment of suffering has concentrated energy within you. Every failed attempt to stop through sheer willpower has taught you something crucial about the real needs hidden beneath the compulsion. Every dark night has prepared you to carry a quality of light that most people cannot even perceive, let alone sustain. Your addiction is not separate from your calling. It is the very reason for your calling, the specific form your soul's hunger has taken. It was never a detour or deviation from your path. It was the path itself all along, painful and torturous and seemingly endless but absolutely necessary, because only those who descend into the depths can bring back what is buried there, waiting for someone brave enough, broken enough, chosen enough to retrieve it. And what exactly are you bringing back from those depths? Nothing less than a lost part of the collective soul, a fragment of wholeness that the world desperately needs, a truth or gift or way of being that only you, forged in your particular fire, can deliver. The question before you is no longer whether you are struggling with addiction. You are, and that struggle has meaning beyond what your rational mind can yet comprehend. The real question, the only question that matters now, is this: what will you do with this impossible-to-ignore energy now awakened within you? This concentrated force, waiting only for redirection to become the power that transforms not only your life, but countless other lives you have not even met yet. The answer to that question is your calling, speaking to you through the very addiction you thought was destroying you. Your hidden addiction has revealed the pathway forward, marked it with pain and compulsion so intense you could not possibly ignore it or dismiss it as unimportant. And now that you can see what it truly is, now that you understand the sacred purpose hidden within the profane struggle, everything changes. Not immediately, not without continued effort and consciousness, but inevitably. The seed planted in darkness is already growing toward light, and you are that seed. If you feel this calling resonating in the depths of your being, if you recognize that your suffering carries hidden purpose waiting to be born into the world, then you are ready for the next stage of this journey. Join others who are transforming personal shadows into collective light, and discover that the most difficult journey you have ever faced may become the greatest gift you will ever offer to a world that needs exactly what you carry within you. Forged in fire, tested in darkness, ready now to emerge into the light that was always your true destiny. This is why Jung insisted on the concept of individuation, the process by which you become what you were always meant to be, shedding layers of false identity, like old skin that no longer fits. Your addiction accelerated this process, violently perhaps, painfully certainly, but undeniably effectively. It stripped away pretense faster than any meditation retreat or therapy session could. It forced you to face the raw truth of who you are beneath every mask you wear for the world. And in that brutal stripping away, in that demolition of the false self that seemed like pure destruction, space opened for something authentic to finally emerge. Most people never undergo this radical deconstruction. They live entire lives wrapped in comfortable identities that society handed them, roles they play with reasonable competence, personas carefully constructed to earn approval and avoid rejection. They are safe, acceptable, functional, and utterly unfulfilled. Because the true self remains buried beneath layers of should and must and have to, never seeing daylight, never breathing free air, never expressing the unique essence it carries. Your addiction demolished those layers whether you wanted the demolition or not. It made conventional life impossible. It burned through the false structures you built, leaving you standing in the ashes, wondering what remains, who you are when everything you thought defined you has been consumed by flames. This devastation, this seeming annihilation of self, is exactly what Jung recognized as the necessary precondition for genuine transformation. You cannot become who you truly are while clinging to who you thought you should be. The grip must be broken, the structures must fall, the old identity must die. Your addiction was the force that accomplished this death. And now, in the space it created through destruction, new life becomes possible in ways it never was before. Consider the archetype Jung called the wounded healer, represented across cultures by figures who descended into suffering, confronted death itself, and returned carrying medicine for their people. Chiron the centaur, wounded by a poisoned arrow, using his eternal agony to develop healing wisdom he shared with others. Asclepius, struck down and raised from death, founding the healing arts. Christ, crucified and resurrected, offering salvation through his wounds. The shaman in indigenous traditions, dismembered in visionary experience, reconstructed by spirits, returning to the tribe with power to heal what once destroyed him. This is your archetype. This is the pattern your life is following, whether you consciously chose it or not. Your wound, your addiction, your descent into the underworld of compulsion and shame is not disqualification from sacred purpose. It is your initiation into it. Only the wounded healer knows suffering from the inside. Only someone who has been broken and reconstructed understands the actual territory of transformation, not as theory or abstraction, but as lived, embodied, undeniable reality. The world does not need more experts who studied suffering in books and lectures. It needs guides who traveled through hell and found the way back, who can say with absolute authenticity, "I know where you are because I was there, and I can show you what I discovered in that darkness that eventually became light." Your credibility as a guide, teacher, healer, leader, artist, or whatever specific form your calling takes, comes directly from your wound. Without it, you are just another voice speaking from comfortable distance about difficulties you never personally faced. With it, you become a voice of authority that cannot be questioned or dismissed, because you carry proof written in your very being, in the scars you no longer hide, that transformation is real, possible, available to anyone willing to descend into their own depths and do the brutal work of integration. Jung spent years studying what he called the transcendent function, the psyche's natural capacity to unite opposites into something greater than either alone. Light and dark, conscious and unconscious, persona and shadow, spirit and matter. These are not enemies locked in eternal combat where one must destroy the other. They are partners in a sacred marriage that produces wholeness. Your addiction represented one pole, the dark, the shadow, the compulsive, the out of control. Your idealized self, the person you thought you should be, represented the other pole, the light, the conscious, the controlled, the perfect. The gap between them created unbearable tension, a chasm you tried desperately to bridge through willpower, through white-knuckling your way toward some imagined version of yourself, free from all darkness. But the transcendent function does not work through victory of light over dark. It works through the union of both, the acceptance and integration of shadow into conscious awareness, creating a third thing, a new identity that contains both poles transformed through their relationship. You are becoming that third thing now. Not the addict and not the idealized perfect self, but something entirely new, forged from both, carrying the depth of your suffering and the height of your aspiration unified in one integrated being. This is what Jung meant by the self, with a capital S, distinct from the small ego self that identifies with either light or dark exclusively. The self contains everything, rejects nothing, integrates all aspects into functional wholeness. Your addiction forced you toward this integration by making division untenable, unsustainable, literally impossible to maintain. You could no longer pretend to be only light, only good, only acceptable. The shadow exploded into visibility, demanding recognition. And in that explosion, painful and humiliating as it was, the opportunity for genuine wholeness finally became available. Many chosen ones discover, once they complete the initial stages of transformation, that their addiction prepared them for a specific task the world desperately needs done. The capacity to hold paradox without collapsing into simplistic either-or thinking. Modern culture suffers from reductive thinking, dividing everything into good or bad, right or wrong, acceptable or shameful, with no room for complexity, nuance, or the reality that truth often contains opposites simultaneously. But you, forged in the fire of addiction and shadow integration, developed the rare capacity to see multiple truths at once. To recognize that someone can be both wounded and powerful, both struggling and growing, both imperfect and exactly where they need to be. This capacity, born from your own experience of being both victim and agent, both trapped and seeking freedom, both ashamed and sacred, equips you to hold space for others in their complexity. You do not need them to be fixed or perfect or healed according to some external standard. You can meet them exactly where they are because someone, something, the depths themselves, met you exactly where you were and did not demand you be different before offering transformation. You became the transformation by being exactly what you were, and now you carry that same capacity to offer others. The energy that once drove your addiction, once redirected, proves to be remarkably powerful for creative work, leadership, healing presence, whatever your specific calling demands. Jung noticed this consistently. Addictive personalities possess extraordinary energy, intensity, capacity for focus and obsession. These qualities destroy when aimed at compulsive behaviors that harm. But when consciously redirected toward meaningful purpose, they become superpowers. The same obsessive focus that kept you trapped in addiction for years now channels into creative projects you pursue with relentless dedication. The same intensity that made your suffering unbearable now infuses your presence with undeniable authenticity that draws others to you. The same capacity for altered states that you sought through substances or behaviors now opens through meditation, creative flow states, service that transcends ordinary consciousness. Nothing was wasted. Every quality that seemed like curse reveals itself as gift once placed in proper context, once aligned with conscious purpose rather than unconscious compulsion. You are not recovering from who you were. You are finally becoming it, correctly expressed, rightly channeled, authentically manifested. And perhaps most importantly, your journey through addiction into calling creates what Jung called the conjunctio, the sacred marriage of opposites that produces the philosopher's stone, the ultimate goal of alchemical work. Within you, spirit and matter unite. The highest aspirations of your soul marry the darkest depths of your shadow, producing integrated consciousness that can navigate both realms with equal skill. You become, in the truest sense, a bridge between worlds, capable of speaking the language of light to those trapped in darkness, capable of speaking the language of darkness to those lost in spiritual bypassing and false transcendence. This makes you dangerous to systems that profit from division, that require people to identify exclusively with either wounded victim or transcendent master. You embody the truth they deny, that wholeness contains everything, that the path to light necessarily travels through darkness, that no one reaches authentic power without first surrendering to authentic powerlessness. Your very existence challenges comfortable lies and partial truths, simply by being who you are, integrated, whole, carrying both wound and wisdom visible for anyone with eyes to see. This is why the calling feels simultaneously terrifying and inevitable. why you cannot unfeel it once awakened, why resistance becomes more painful than surrender. You were chosen precisely because your wound created the capacity for the specific medicine the world needs from you. Not generic healing or universal truth, but your specific gift, born from your specific suffering, aimed at the specific people who need exactly what only you can offer, because only you traveled your particular path through shadow into light. So what now? How do you live as someone who has recognized that addiction was never the enemy, but the messenger, never the obstacle, but the initiation into your true work? You must begin practicing what Jung called conscious suffering, the deliberate choice to remain present with discomfort rather than fleeing into old patterns of escape or new patterns of spiritual bypassing. When the craving emerges, and it will emerge because energy this powerful does not disappear, but only transforms, you pause and ask what it truly wants, what need it is signaling, what creative impulse or emotional truth is demanding expression. You feel the intensity fully, you breathe into it, you welcome it as information rather than attacking it as enemy. This practice rewires your relationship with intensity itself, teaching you that powerful feeling does not require immediate action or suppression, only conscious attention and wise response. You must also create what Jung called a temenos, a sacred container strong enough to hold the transformation occurring within you. This might be a physical space in your home dedicated to inner work, meditation, journaling, creative expression. It might be a community of others walking similar paths who can witness your process without judgment or premature advice. It might be a therapeutic relationship with someone trained in depth psychology who understands archetypal patterns and shadow integration. Whatever form it takes, you need boundaries and support substantial enough to hold you during the volatile stages of transformation when old structures have collapsed, but new ones have not yet solidified. You do not walk this path alone, even though parts of the journey only you can travel. And finally, you must practice what Jung called the symbolic life, living in conscious relationship with the deeper patterns and meanings that move through ordinary existence. You pay attention to dreams, synchronicities, the images and metaphors that capture your imagination. You recognize that your addiction was itself a symbol, a physical manifestation of spiritual hunger, and now you learn to read all of life symbolically, seeing the sacred embedded in the mundane, the archetypal patterns playing out through personal circumstances.